this is the perfect one to do today, which is the mitzvah of Yom Kippur, the Yom Kippur service, which is what we're coming up to right now. So in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, everybody knows that there was a Yom Kippur service, and on the Yom Kippur service, in the Beis Hamikdash, what was the feature attraction of the service? What's that? The Kohen Gadol did the service during the day. What was one of the services that he did, which was really... He'd go into the Holy of Holies, that's true. He'd go into the Holy of Holies, that was the only day of the year he went in, correct? What else that took place on the Yom Kippur in the Beis Hamikdash?
So when they had
the two goats. That's why we have a lot. By the way, you notice that a lot of expressions that we use nowadays come straight out of the Torah. So, for example, it brought down the house. Where does brought down the house come from? It comes from Shimshon. He brought down the house. The writing on the wall, they see the writing on the wall. It comes from Daniel, the book of Daniel, where they see the writing on the wall. To pull the wool over someone's eyes. Where do you think that comes from? Yaakov and Yitzchak. When Yaakov goes in with the wool, Yaakov deceives Yitzchak by wearing the wool. It's all in Torah, gentlemen. It's all there. All you got to do is look for it. So we have something called a scapegoat. Where do you think the scapegoat comes from?
Two goats.
The two goats. There's one goat that lives, and one goat. Okay, now the feature attraction of the Beis Hamikdash, the Kohen Gadol does the service the whole day, and then they take these two goats. And the two goats look exactly alike. The two goats look exactly alike, same size, same weight, same price. They take these two goats and they cast lots. And the way they cast the lots is they took two cubes made of a very expensive type of, it's something called escroa, which I think one of the commentaries says is coral. And there are two cubes that are in a bucket, and then the Kohen Gadol would pick them out. He would line the two goats. These are the two goats in front of him. And he would line up, these are the two goats, would be standing in front of the Kohen Gadol, and he would take these two cubes. One of them said La Hashem, and one of them for Hashem, and the other one said La Azazel. Now Azazel means the wilderness. I know in modern Hebrew, if you hear somebody invoke that in conversation, it means he's saying something unpleasant to you. But it does not mean, most people think Azazel means hell, because that's the way it's used in Hebrew when you tell somebody where to go, but it's not what it means. It's not what it means. Azazel means wilderness. It just doesn't come out in English. I say, oh, go to the wilderness. You know, that just loses something in the translation. But in modern Hebrew, that's what Azazel means, the wilderness. Now, what they would do is like this. He would take the two cubes and he'd hold them up. He would pick them out of this bucket or out of the box that he picked them out of, and then he would touch them to the heads of the goats. The one that said La Hashem was then brought into the Beis Hamikdash, and it was sacrificed as a regular offering. The one that said La Azazel was then taken out to the wilderness and walked up to the top of a mountain and was pushed off of a cliff. And it would die. That's a pasuk in the Torah. They take this goat out and they would push it off the cliff. So we have to try to understand what's really going on here, because it sounds like a bizarre ritual. The first question obviously becomes, how could the Torah possibly say to push it? Doesn't the Torah say you're not supposed to cause pain to living creatures? I mean, even if you kill a bug, you're supposed to kill it in one shot. You're allowed to kill bugs, but you have to do it as quickly and as painlessly as possible. So aren't we against it? And the whole idea of shechita, one of the ideas behind shechita is the most painless way. An animal, by the time you cut through, the knife is so sharp that by the time you cut through the trachea, the esophagus, the animal has not yet registered the pain. So the animal is essentially dead before it even feels the pain of slaughtering. So how could the Torah go and say to go push a goat off a cliff, and it falls down the cliff and breaks into pieces? I mean, it's every bit as bad as it sounds like. Falling off the cliff is every bit. It's not like, okay, drug it up before we push it. You push the living goat off the cliff and it falls down the cliff, and exactly what happens to it is what happens to anybody who falls off of a cliff. So how could the Torah, who says don't cause pain to animals, say such a thing? Why shouldn't you cause pain to animals? There's only one reason we don't cause pain to animals. Because Hashem said so. Not because we feel it's wrong. It has nothing to do with what we feel is wrong. What we feel is immaterial. We were created by God. God said, don't cause pain to living animals. But here, I want you to do it. So if God said to do it, why did God say that? We'll try to figure out. First, we have to deal with the human perspective. From a human perspective, it has nothing to do with us. If a person, there's an interesting question people ask: is a person allowed to be a vegetarian? Are you allowed to be a vegetarian?
Yeah.
So the answer is, if you don't enjoy meat, you can be a vegetarian. If you enjoy meat, but it doesn't have a good effect on you, you could be a vegetarian. If you feel that meat is unhealthy for you, you can be a vegetarian. If you feel it's wrong to eat meat, then you have crossed the line from being a vegetarian to a heretic. Because now you're arguing with God. God said, not only you could eat meat, there's certain times it's a mitzvah to eat meat. Shabbos, you have to eat meat. Yom Tov, you're supposed to eat beef. God said to eat meat. Well, I think it's wrong. Well, okay. Let's see you flood the world first, then we'll talk, right? And if you can split the sea don't even split the sea, just split the water in your bathtub. Then maybe we'll discuss it. Let's see. Forget frogs. Forget frogs. Let's see you do anything impressive, right? Other than sit around watching TV, and then we could talk. So you understand? So you're arguing with God. Who said that means that you disagree with God? I mean, listen, gentlemen. You can't disagree with your wife. And you certainly can't disagree with God, right? It doesn't. You just can't, right? And if you do, it's foolish both times. So you can't disagree with God. So you want to be a vegetarian, you don't enjoy meat, you don't like meat, you don't like the effect meat has on you, you want to go on a special diet, that's one thing. But not because you think. So it's different if you feel, well, I don't like the way the meat industry is treating animals. If you saw how they raise veal, you probably would never eat veal. Right, but I'll take your piece. but if you saw how they raise veal, apparently they keep in a cage and they're not, okay, that's something else, that's the meat industry. But if you think it's inherently wrong to eat meat, that means that you don't understand, that you're arguing with God. You understand how ridiculous it is. Now, the same God that created the rules of the game said this is one time where it's an exception. What's the exception? The exception is that this goat you push off a cliff. Now let's try to understand what's really going on here. Maybe it'll answer some of the questions. So you see, in America, I remember the animal rights activists poisoning human food to protect whales. And I love that. They poisoned, what do you call it? They used to poison cereal or something, to protect the whales, because we need the whales. So the idea behind it is like this. When a person does an Avera, what do you do? In the course of the year, let's say a person messed up. So what do? You bring a korban, you bring an offering to the Beis HaMikdash, and the Kohen takes it and they sacrifice it, they burn it on the altar. That is comparable to a king who has a son, and the prince did something wrong. Okay, the king talks to him, the king tells him what he should have done, maybe give him a little punishment. But the king deals with his son directly. Now, what happens if the king has a son and one of the princess or one of the maids or whoever it is that takes care of one of the nannies who takes care of the son, she's standing with the son in front of the throne, and then the son just soils the floor all over in front of the king. Who's going to clean that up? The king is there's a certain limit, okay, lady, clean it up. It's your baby, or it's your job, clean it up. That's where I back out, up to this point. When I was dating my wife, I mentioned to her at one point, by the way, I just want I don't do diapers. So she said to me, well, I don't either, now what? Right. I did them again. You'll do them like the best of us. You'll do them. You'll say you won't, but you will. You'll do plenty of them, I guarantee you. And what do you call it? So the kid soils the floor. The king's not going to clean it up. Who do you bring in? You bring in somebody else to clean it up, and then you have a cleanup crew that's taken care of. This goat on Yom Kippur, what does the Kohen Gadol do before they push the goat off the cliff? He puts his hands on the head of the goat, and he says a confession for all of the sins of the Jewish people. Now, that goat is totally saturated with gook. We can't put that on the altar. Normally, you did an Avera, you take a korban, you put it on the altar, God takes your offering, God cleans it up himself, so to speak. Here, you've taken a goat, the Kohen Gadol says a confession, and loads this goat up, so to speak, and I'll explain what that means to load it up. He loads up the goat, so to speak. And what we want to do is we want to take the goat and destroy those averas. How are those averas destroyed? They're taken out all the way to the wilderness, which is where the forces of evil lurk, who are the archangels of Esav, the Satan, and all of the satanic forces. And we take the goat out there and we push the goat off the cliff. Here, you take it. We don't sacrifice the goat because then people will think that it's a sacrifice to the Satan. So we don't shecht it normally. We want to make sure that it's clear this is an offering. According to some of the commentaries, it's a bribe to the Satan. We're bribing him. Here, take the goat so that you don't prosecute us on Yom Kippur. Here, take a gift, take a bribe, so you don't prosecute us on Yom Kippur. I'm from Chicago. I know all about that. And that's the way you got things done in Chicago. An honest cop in Chicago is one who, after you paid him off, he stayed bought. That was an honest cop in Chicago. So we bribe the Satan, so to speak, and we push the goat off the cliff. What the commentaries explain is like this. Now pay attention carefully, because this will give you more of an insight into what's really going on here. You see, when you do an Avera, anybody does an Avera, you create an angel that prosecutes you. You create a prosecutor. When you do a mitzvah, you create an advocate. When a person dies, in the judgment after a person dies, he's judging himself, because it's his own advocates versus his own prosecutors that judge him. When a person does an Avera, could you do tshuva for an Avera? How soon could you do tshuva? You do tshuva immediately. You do an Avera and do tshuva immediately. You know how you do tshuva? Let's say you ate something you shouldn't have eaten. You say, please Hashem, forgive me, I shouldn't have done that. I'll try not to do it again. Right there you did tshuva. Okay? So what you've done is, you've taken a piece of tape and you've put it over the mouth of that prosecutor. You've created a prosecutor by doing the Avera, but you did tshuva, so you put a piece of tape, he can no longer prosecute you. If you do the Avera again, you create another prosecutor and the piece of tape comes off. If you do tshuva, then they bring out another roll of tape. And they take it, but how long? And they're with you all the time. They're just waiting. When do you ever get rid of them? You know when you get rid of them? On Yom Kippur. The Kohen Gadol, when he says confession, it's not just voodoo. He's not putting his hands on, okay, let it be as if it's their sins. He's taking all the prosecuting angels in Klal Yisrael, and he's loading them up on the sheep, on the goat. Loading up the goat. The goat is loaded now with prosecuting angels. And then he takes them and he pushes them off a cliff. They're totally destroyed. It's no longer putting tape on. They are totally destroyed. You're starting with a clean slate. That's what we mean. Yom Kippur wipes the slate clean. You have a completely new slate on Yom Kippur. On Yom Kippur, it's wiped completely clean. That's the idea of pushing the goat off the cliff. At one level, it's a bribe. At another level, it's a destruction of all the Averas of Klal Yisrael, and therefore their goat is pushed off the cliff. Any questions on that? Any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
What's the difference between a sacrifice and an offering?
Same thing. Offering and sacrifice use the same. They call it.
And how do we offer?
We're not. This isn't an offering. That's exactly why we don't shot. That's why we don't slaughter it. If we slaughter it, it looks like it's an offering / sacrifice. That's why we specifically do not sacrifice it. We specifically kill it in a way where it's not sacrificed. Where it's not done in the form of a sacrifice, so that we should not make a mistake and think that it's a sacrifice, that it's satanic worship. That's specifically why it's done that way. Very good question. That's specifically why we take it out to the wilderness, not in the Beis Hamikdash, and it's pushed off of a cliff, which does not resemble in any way, shape, or form sacrificial service.
It does create sacrificial service. It does create the death of something in order to appease a force.
It's first of all, again, it's the way God prescribed doing it in order to destroy those prosecuting angels. And God says, do it in a way that you won't become confused and think it's an offering to Satan. It's not an offering to Satan, it's a bribe to Satan, it's a gift. Very big difference between giving somebody a gift and giving somebody a sacrifice. It's a gift to Satan. Here, Satan, take this, just slip one on the side and just be quiet today. That's how the commentaries explain it. And we're doing what the Satan is essentially, what we're trying to do is symbolically, of course, because it's between us and God. It's symbolically we're bribing the Satan.